All right, guys, we are going to talk about changes in states of matter. So just a quick review that there are four main states of matter. We have solid, liquid, gas, and plasma. Substances can move between these states of matter, and this is called a phase change. So basically, any pure element can move into being a solid form of that element, a liquid form of that element, a gaseous form of that element, or a plasmic form of that element. Now, the temperature that it may cause or the temperature change that may cause these phase changes may be so great that we can't have them here on Earth, but theoretically they should all exist. So solid to liquid, we call this melting. You probably know this, I would hope. May or may not know this. But melting is a change from a solid state to a liquid state, and this is melting occurs in everything, not just ice to water. So melting is just a change from solid state to a liquid state. A melting point is the temperature at which the solid begins to melt. So here we have our solid. Look, it's crystalline, maybe meaning it has a very specific shape. And then here we have our water molecules, or excuse me, our liquid molecules moving around up here. As the temperature increases, these solid molecules begin to have more energy and they bounce off and they move into the liquid state, causing melting. So moving from a liquid to a solid, so the opposite of that. So when you move from a liquid to a solid, you go through freezing. This is a change from the liquid state to the solid state. Freezing point is the temperature at which a liquid freezes. So if you have a bunch of water molecules and then you add remove heat, you decrease the temperature, all of a sudden those water molecules will stop moving and organize themselves into a crystalline structure, or a little very well organized structure, which would be ice or a solid. From liquid to gas, this is called vaporization. A lot of people also call this evaporation because evaporation is the movement of molecules from a liquid to a gas. Vaporization is the change from a liquid state to a, gaseous state. Boiling point is the temperature at which liquid, this should say gaseous by the way, is a temperature at which the temperature at which the liquid begins to vaporize or change into a gas. So when you boil water, for example, you put it on the stove, you increase the temperature, and the temperature at which that liquid will begin to become a gas is called its boiling point. From a gas to a liquid is called condensation. So that is the change from a gaseous state to a liquid state, and a condensation point is the temperature at which a gas condenses into a liquid. So basically right here, if I have a bunch of gas molecules and I cool the temperature down, these gas molecules will stop moving so much and they will eventually come to a much slower tempo or movement, kinetic energy, a much slower energy, and they will end up in this flowing liquid state. So you should be pretty familiar with all these words, but to go from solid to liquid, if you increase the energy or increase the heat, it's going to melt. If you decrease the energy or remove heat, it's going to solidify or freeze. Okay? If you are going from a liquid to a gas and you increase the energy, it's going to vaporize, evaporate, or boil. And if you are going from a gas to a liquid and you decrease the energy or temperature, it's going to condense. So some less well-known ones would be from a gas to a solid. This is called deposition, from a gas to a solid. So this isn't a normal one that happens. Basically to move through two different phase changes, so from gas to liquid, liquid to solid, there has to be a very drastic change in temperature so that the molecules move directly from being very energetic in a gaseous state to not energetic at all in a solid state. So deposition is the change from a gaseous state to a solid state. Again, very rare because it's rare to be able to change the temperature so greatly, so quickly that it goes directly from being a gas to a solid. From being a solid to a gas, so sublimation. Sublimation changes from the gaseous to the solid state or I guess I should say the other way, from the solid to the gaseous state. And it, to the, and essentially it's another one of these things where the temperature has to be that much higher that it will change, skip the liquid phase altogether and change directly into a gas. Now this happens actually a lot more often than you'd think. So on a very, let's say a cold day but where the sun is out, and it has snowed, so everything's a little bit icy, you're going to see like a steam coming off of snow or ice in the sunlight. And basically what that is sublimation. That's the ice where the air temperature is too cold to turn into a liquid, but where the sun's heat energy, okay, or light energy is getting to the molecules in the snow and basically vaporizing them, meaning making them become a gas. And that's called sublimation. From a gas to a plasma, this is called ionization. So when we move from a gas to a plasma, there is a change in the amount of charges. So an ionization point is the temperature at which the atoms in a gaseous state become so energized that they lose electrons and become ions, thus forming the plasmic state. So here we have gas, and notice that they're all just very normal, and there aren't free-floating electrons. We're going to pretend like these green ones are the free-floating electrons. So when I move past the ionization point, okay, in the plasma, you're going to notice that now these molecules have become charged and there are free electrons floating around, and those charges is what causes electricity to be able to flow through those. So with like neon signs, that's why you're able to light up the gas, is because of this ionization. Now from plasma to gas is deionization. Deionization is the change from plasmic state to gaseous state. The deionization point is exactly the opposite of the other one, which is the temperature at which atoms cool enough to regain their electrons and are no longer ions, thus creating a gaseous state. So once they all chill out enough, these electrons can return to their atoms and it turns into a gaseous state. So once the temperature has decreased enough. So here is a little diagram that kind of shows all the different names of the things as they go around. Notice that a solid, liquid, and gas can become each other, although this reaction between a gas and a solid is a lot less frequent. But notice that plasma can only come from a gas, which is why originally we thought that there were only 3 phases when we were originally doing this a long time ago. Like when I went to high school, there were only 3 phases of matter. So yeah, I hope that makes sense.